Welcome back to Daytona and Autobahn, where the prototypes, GT-AM and GT Pro classes are going at it. And sorry for the technical difficulties there. Unfortunately, a power outage struck our director, so we've been trying to get things going here again. But we are back with you. Just to recap you on a little bit of what you missed, Paul Darling is now in front of the prototype class. We talked a little bit about it before the power outage, and David Williams ended up having trouble getting off of pit road, ended up striking the edge of that pit road wall that seems to get at least one driver every single Daytona race today. That driver was David Williams. It cost him the lead. Now he's on a recovery drive. But Joshua Wolf is 7.5 seconds back right now in second in the prototype class. Ross Booth is still leading the GT Pro class. Ross Booth has probably had the cleanest drive out of everybody in the field right now, it seems, as he continues to bound his way around Daytona. Kevin Binkley is in second in the GT Pro, followed by Marc-Antoine Thibault. That is your podium right now in the GT Pro class. We go back to the GT AM class, and Kevin O'Keefe is now, well, losing the lead because he's coming down for pit stop. Yes, it's pit stop time. Go and talk about those GTAMs here real quick.
In fact, they all are. Santana's been in, Rhodes has been in, O'Keefe coming in now. We were talking with Cyander a little bit about the pit stop strategy. It looks like the AMs and the pros are all going to do it on 2 stops. We definitely think that the prototypes are going to make 3, and it looks like, Adam, looks like they've all gone. It looks like a splash and go is the way they're going to do it rather than split it up into equal parts.
Yeah, and I think right now that'd be a great time to actually introduce Cyander here. And, of course, great road racer. You've seen him all over the place here on iRacing and the GSRC broadcast. And Cy, thanks for joining us and stepping in here at the last minute. But I know you kind of got a little bit of a feel for the prototype class in particular. What can we expect out of those guys as far as pit stops here the rest of the way?
Well, so far we've seen nobody really try and take the 2-stop strategy, but there may be a dark horse deep in the field that we don't know about just yet in all the chaos. But the main thing right now to watch out for is, like you said, the traffic situation at the moment. Nobody is really benefiting from the traffic, but I think the traffic management from Paul Darling has been pretty much on point so far.
Yeah, Paul Darling's been able to follow his teammate around with David Williams before the pit stops. And, of course, the prototypes did all have their pit stops. We're looking right now at 9 prototypes at the front of this field before you start getting back into the GT Pros, and but only 8 of those prototypes on the lead lap currently. But Paul Darling leading him, and he is just on fire right now. Looks like that's Ross Booth on pit road. And what are we looking at here for GT Pro pit stops? They're going to be about the same as the GTAM?
Well, so far, most of the fuels, as we know, the cars here in Autobahn have a reduced fuel tank to sort of force those more unorthodox pit strategies. We're expecting a fill time around 20-22 seconds, and most of these cars have had a pit stop time about 23 seconds, so that adds up to what we were expecting. The main thing is whether these GTEs will take tires or not, and so far we don't have any reason to see that they will, but with the low downforce setups they're running at Daytona, they will be going through those rear tires, especially powering out of these hairpins.
Yeah, and of course, it's been my experience in plenty of Daytona races that, yeah, you got to protect those rears just a little bit, especially if you want to try to go for a no pit stop strategy over multiple stints, which is exactly what these guys are having to do here today. With no current battle in the prototypes, looking back at GT Pro, and I really don't see anything, but, Soup, what are you seeing?
Well, I saw something interesting from Ross Booth. Maybe Cyander can go back to replay and tell me what happened. Ross Booth coming into pit lane looked like maybe he thought he was coming in too fast, and he broke and he slowed down and then basically stopped on pit lane as if he was out of gas, and then had to take a tow, I think, from like about 12 feet to his booth, to his stall where he sits now. Let me correct myself. Maybe it wasn't. It might have been Kevin O'Keefe. Might have been. I'm sorry. I think it was Kevin O'Keefe that I saw do that. So I'm not sure. Very, very strange for O'Keefe.
Yeah, O'Keefe's pulling away right now there. I know you're going to start the side, but I was also hearing him talk about possibly running out of fuel and actually apologizing to somebody.
Yeah, I think he might have been bringing it in dead stick, and then thought about it. He was worried about getting a speeding penalty, so he slowed down, But they didn't have any fuel left to speed back up to get to his box. Interesting.
Now, Cy also pointing out here, what did you notice here about Denise? He's pulling away here. Cy, what did you notice there about Denise? I see him pulling out of pit road. Did you see him do something a little bit different?
Yeah, as we saw Ross come in about 2 laps ago, but Dennis is only just leaving the pits now. That's something to keep in mind for, especially the GTEs. They have a little bit of a slower fill time compared to these prototypes. So any laps that you don't have to take at the end of the race in terms of fuel, that's about a 2 to 3 second advantage that you have over the next car. So by Dennis going a lap longer, he may have just gained 2 to 3 seconds over Ross.
All right, hey, let's go up to prototypes here. Joshua Wolf is having to hold off a hard-charging David Williams. David Williams has gained 3 seconds on the leader here the last couple laps, and probably about the same on Joshua Wolf, and he's on the hunt.
Oh, that was good. He's a lone wolf.
Yeah,
getting that looking, getting out of the way there. That was Olivier Tacot, making plenty of room for Wolf to get by.
And, you know, with that draft right now, David Williams is going to pounce. He knows he can't hang back here for long. He wants to catch up to his teammate Paul Darling, but he can't sit here and afford to play around with Joshua Wolf now that he's on a recovery drive. So if you're David Williams, how aggressive are you here trying to get around him?
Well, he's working on him right now. It could be all about traffic now. I don't think traffic's going to be an issue if they catch him on the banking. Here comes the toll. Let's see if he forces the issue down into corner number 1. Maybe we can ask Cy about this. I don't know the difference between the HPDs and the Dolores that are out there right now. And there goes Williams side by side. This will be interesting. Who can brake? What I have heard is that the braking point is a lot earlier in these cars. Let's see how it plays out here. Who's going to be brave? Oh, it's a lap car of Jared Eden there that's going to maybe solve the problem.
Oh, and both the lap cars of Eaton and Young Park. And
Young Park.
With both these guys here, the GT classes trying to get around the GT cars, and almost had a very interesting turn 1 there, but everybody's able to get away free, and David Williams really able to get away free. He's got some clear sailing, and he should be able to catch Doe Stifle here maybe by the time they get up on the banking.
I don't think Williams is going anywhere. I really think Wolf has the pace to stay with him.
Well, right now, of course, the sights is going to be how much time can he gain on his teammate Paul Darling. Could we still have a race in prototypes here by the time everything is done? Looking at the last couple of laps for David Williams, he's ran 34s and 135 and was in traffic, and kind of going up there to Paul Darling, and he's just been running 35s. So no wonder that David Williams is beginning hand over fist, and he wants as much clear track as he could possibly get here right now. And just kind of going through the field once again. Oh, who's that off? That's the 96 car. That is, or at least
Tim McLeish is off.
95 car, Tim McLeish.
Get a replay on this one. I don't think he hit anything. He just ended up in the grass, and I think he's going to be okay.
I think he, you know, when he took the toe, I think he was like, you know, I'm good. I'm good. The Mercedes did a little bit of off-roading. It stretched his legs a little bit. I think I'm going to go ahead and maybe call it a day. And indeed, he has resigned from the race, so his day is done. You know, we haven't talked about these guys. They've had a little battle going here for a little bit. It's kind of deep in the field, but if we can go to Mark Herzog and Matt Owens in the GTAM class, they've had a good little fight here for a little while now, trying to get through the bus stop. And see there, Herzog
33rd. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I was going to say, Herzog starting to pull away a little bit from Matt Owens, of course, as soon as I start talking about it. That's the reverse commentator's curse soup. You know, it's like the commentator's curse is for the drivers, is when something happens to them, and the commentator's curse for us is when we start talking about him and it goes away or something like that.
Well, Herzog qualified 6 spots above Owens, so Owens has had a pretty good run. he's trying to pick up one more on Herzog if he can. They got about 4 seconds before they get up to Dawson Brock.
And we got now Cody Franklin, Chris Sherburne here going at it. Down into turn 1, diving it in there. Chris Sherburne's going to run that a little bit wide, but that might get him a good exit. And have to deal with a little bit of prototype traffic there as well. Hearing somebody talk about slowing down. Oh, okay. Oliver Turcotte's on the banking there. No need to go to it. Stay with this battle.
More chatter in this race than I've seen in an Autobahn race in a long time. A lot of it is traffic control. Some of it is in-race coaching.
Yeah. I think in-race coaching, that's a very polite way of putting that, Snoop. I like that. In-race coaching. Go up to Jimbo Pfeiffer in P5 here in your I believe Jimbo is running your GT Pros. Yeah, he's running GT Pros here today. And Jimbo's another one of those good guys that I like to talk about a lot. Raced with him for a number of years. I had a brief run-in one time with Jimbo Pfeiffer. It was at a majors race at Bristol, of all places, and that was about the only problem I think I ever had with him. But that just could show racers are like elephants. There, Soup. We remember everything.
Goodness, remind me not to get on your bad side. Chasing right behind him is Paul Slavonic. He's trying to get around Dale Green. He caught him in the bus stop. Now he's out on the banking. The red car of Slavonic on the hunt. He's about at 1.5 seconds behind Pfeiffer. But Slavonic qualified well down the order. So Slavonic having a much better run as far as position gains compared to Jimbo.
Yeah, that battle's going to continue on here for at least a little bit. These guys are tough. I tell you what, going an hour and a half here at Daytona in single class, and a lot of these guys, I see with the 3 classes, and a lot of these guys not getting a break at all. It is constant trying to have to deal with traffic, deal with positional battles inside your class. And these guys are probably going to sleep pretty good today. They're going to be pretty tired, especially guys like Jimbo here. Now we got Luke Schmidt and Ryan Walsh on the screen. Luke Schmidt looks like maybe he got, nope, rear wing still damaged. I thought for a second maybe he had some of that fixed there, Soup, but he's been dealing with that rear wing damage here the entire race.
Yeah, I know I've been doing a good job of it. I don't want to jump you around too much, but let's quickly go to car number 4. This is in the AM class. This is Joe Atterbury, our real-world driver. We're looking at it with Kevin Santana right behind him.
But we're going to stick here with Schmidt here for just a minute with him and Ryan Walsh, and we'll get up to Atterbury in just a second. Looks like Ryan Walsh is going to complete that pass on Luke Schmidt and already start to pull away a little bit. Is he going to be able to come back to him here in the horseshoe? Not quite. And I believe that is Dawson Brock catching him behind him. But let's go ahead and go up to Atterbury. And he's actually got his hands full right now with Kevin Santana. Of course, Atterbury there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him, Soup? I think we might have lost Soup here for a second. So, of course, he drives in the, I believe, the Pirelli World Challenge Series, real-world driver. Got a lot of seat time. I believe I've seen him actually race at COTA before, which has been pretty cool. So these guys, not bad, pulling in now some real-world drivers. Autobahn becoming a better series than it already was. But Kevin Santana, at least this time around, able to complete that pass on Atterbury. Still probably trying to get used to just racing with these guys in general. We talked about adaptability earlier on in the broadcast. That's another thing that people have to get used to is actually racing with one another. And that could be kind of a different dynamic as well. So that's kind of the battle right now in your GTAM class. Even though Joey Atterbury is a pro, he is currently racing in the GTAM here in Autobahn. Let's see, hearing something might be going on with Turcotte there, side.
Yeah, Turcotte's currently locked into a battle with Vince Bauer at the moment, coming out of second horseshoe here. Coming onto the banking, it's going to be interesting to see if Turcotte lifts and stays in the drafts behind Bao, or if he wants to just go out and pass him and get that track position and try to close the gap to Lindsay ahead. The main thing with these cars is to try and get that extra lap on fuel, like I was talking about earlier, get those 2 or 3 seconds. And then as a driver, you got to decide, is the guy ahead of me fast enough to keep that 2 or 3 seconds in hand, or is he slow enough that I lose those 2 or 3 seconds on track? It's a big guessing game, and sometimes you got to play the mind game as well, trying to stick behind somebody and keep them going. The main thing right now to watch for is see what Dennis Servetic is doing, because he was the one in the lead pack who went 1 lap longer compared to Ross Booth, Kevin Binkley, and Marc Antoine. So I'm interested to see how this race will turn out at the front and in the mid pack here.
You know, it is. Of course, it's a long Autobahn season. Every little spot counts, as often does in real long championships. And so that gets to be the part where, I mean, heck, you could be 1 extra lap here could get you, you know, who knows how many points down the line at the end of the season. So that's kind of what these guys are looking at. Of course, these guys are going to have John Ulmer coming up behind him. That's that green prototype closing in now on Oliver Turcotte. That's bow is, looks like Ulmer might just be patient, wait till after the horseshoe to start getting after these guys here now. Looking around the field, trying to see if I can find anything else here. Chris Sherburne and Cody Franklin were still going at it, but that battle's getting ready to get broken up by mid-class. And look at it, still following on with Ulmer, trying to work his way now around Vance Bow. Getting ready to come back into the banking here, but he's going to clear Vance before that Corvette. Really, I really like, I got to go on a little bit of a tangent. I really like the new Corvettes. I actually saw the first my first new Corvette with my own eyes the other day. You know, it's just a beauty on the road. I'm sorry, I've got to say it. I like it.
I don't blame you. I've also heard it in person before, and it sounds pretty good. Even everybody knows the C7 was a monster, and that V8 roar was not something you can replace. But the new Corvette isn't a slouch either. I mean, nothing can compare to the RSR, of course. I think we both agree on that.
I think we could both agree on that as well. As hey, let's go back actually to Mark Herzog here real quick. He's fighting Matt Owens once again. Matt Owens trying to come back on him. They had Mark Wilson in the prototype, kind of broke him up for just a second, but right back at it. Herzog, he's been trying to hold off Matt Owens here for a while. I think these guys got shuffled up a little bit in the pit stops, as Matt Owens was 3 seconds faster last lap than what Herzog is here. So really, it's one of those things. You catch him is one thing, pass him is another, and so far hasn't been able to do it. As Dawson Brock was the vehicle that you saw off the road up there, and that's actually a position for Herzog and Matt Owens. Go ahead and pull up the GSRC replay machine for that one, see what happened to Dawson. Dawson, a good friend of ours here on GSRC. Yeah, it's just, R8's great at that there, Cy. Just kind of, you know, locked up the brakes and wanted to shoot the other direction.
Yeah, the Audi being a mid-engine car like that, if you try to change your angle in the middle of the braking zone without sort of modulating that brake pedal, even with ABS, the back end will step out. These cars, especially the Audi and the McLaren in iRacing, are known for being a little bit tail happy, and you got to be careful into these braking zones, especially with the wings trimmed out the way they are for Daytona.
And let's talk about that real quick, Cy. I mean, you got a little experience setting some of these cars up. We know you're fast here. You know, there's obvious differences between the setups at a place like Le Mans or Spa compared to Daytona. What is a type of setup thing that happens here at Daytona as we're watching Vance Bow and Oliver Turcotte still going at it? It's Oliver Turcotte's trying to come back on Vance. What is something maybe in the setup that some people don't think about? Wings obvious, aero obvious, but what are some things people don't think about here?
Definitely how the banking affects the suspension. As you know, the banking basically causes you to squat down on the springs a little bit more. And that can adjust the aero platform, especially on cars where you don't have a lot of travel. And this is more of a prototype thing. Well, I'm a prototype driver. But in certain GT cars, you can get to the point where you bottom out on the springs and you hit the bump stops on some of these cars. And that can affect what the aerodynamic platform does. So sometimes you might have the nose pitched up really high, sometimes you have the nose pitched down. And that's something you got to watch out for.
And hearing Paul Lindsay had a problem. We've got the GSRC replay machine going up. Too hot into turn one, and kind of does the same thing that R8 just did. kind of just loses the front end grip especially, starts sliding off and into the Armco there. Thankfully, did not hit the Armco with a 58G impact as we saw a few days ago.
No, but it is interesting that he decided to take a tow from there. Maybe he decided his car wasn't stable enough. It didn't look like he had that much damage.
Meanwhile, let's recap the leaders here real quick. It's been a few minutes. We're getting ready to get into the last 30 minutes of this race. We're probably going to see the prototypes coming in for their last stop here in the next couple of minutes. And actually, excuse me, it should be their next to last stop as we're expecting a splash and go at the end. But Paul Darling still in the lead of this thing. And has been since the first round of pit stops where his teammate David A. Williams found the edge of the pit wall. The good news for David Williams is that he hit it soft. So David Williams currently in second place with not hardly any front end damage at all. In fact, now with David Williams, he's gaining time, a lot of time on his teammate that's currently in the lead, Paul Darling, with that gap now 6.5 seconds. It was down to 9.5 when David Williams made that pass around Joshua Wolf a few minutes ago, who's currently sitting in third. That is your podium right now in the prototype class. Ross Booth is your leader in the GT Pros, as he has been, I'm pretty sure, just about this entire race. He's been up there and just trying to run as clean of a race as possible. And he's got himself a great lead over top of Kevin Binkley right now, who's sitting in second. Marc-Antoine Diebolt right now sitting in third in your GT Pro class. GTAM is going to go to Jeremy Rhodes. And this is a surprising one here, Cy, because Jeremy Rhodes has kind of had an exciting race, especially the first probably 10 laps or so of this race was very exciting for Jeremy Rhodes. He's been able to recover a little bit. Jordan Musser and Kevin Santana right now running in second and third as they continue to make their way around Daytona International Speedway. Of course, the sun now fully down, lights now fully on, and Joshua Wolf beginning the round of prototype pit stops here, getting it out onto the back out on the track. See Bebe's around him. He's going to have a lap car, the GTAM car of David Perry right on his inside coming out here going through the horseshoe. Should be no problem at all for Joshua Wolf. But that's going to be a question is when is everybody else going to start coming down here, Cy?
So it looks like Wolf pitted a lap early on the first sequence of stops, so it's not surprising you'd see him pit a lap early on the second as well. The more interesting thing for Wolf here is that he decided not to take tires. His pit stop was only 26 seconds long, which is only enough for fuel in this car. It may be worth not taking tires if Josh decides to, well, gamble a little bit, because tires are worth about 20 seconds of this car. And I don't know if you'll have 20 seconds of tire fall off within this last half hour or last 29 minutes of the race, give or take.
So strategy calls already playing out. So Cy, you'll have to talk to some of your prototype buddies here in the field at the end of this thing. We'll see what we got here as far as tire wear at the end of this. But Leif Peterson now, long-time Autobahn runner, and Carter Cunninger, they're both going to make their way down pit road. Really hot. They're able to get it woe down just to the timing stripe as they're going to head toward their pit boxes. We'll have to watch out to see if these guys decide to take tires or not. We'll watch the cars go up on the jacks if they do. If they don't, well, then we kind of know what they're thinking here. And so far, of course, they put fuel in these cars, I do believe, first. Is that correct, Cy?
That is correct. Fuel and tires are separate in this car. It makes for great strategy and great some great alternative plays, so to speak, especially in some of these longer races. It's always interesting in the pit box as when you're either a driver waiting to get in or just driver in the car, just wondering how much you got to push the cars sort of keep the pace up or save the tires and save 20 seconds, which is what these guys are doing right now.
So that's very interesting here, and it's great to have Cy on board with us here for tonight, being able to kind of give us that experience factor here. Of course, the prototype, the LMP2 is a newer car here to iRacing, just coming on just a couple of months ago. Been great. I have not been able to run many races with it, but ones I have, it's been an absolute blast to drive. If you have not driven it yet, I would highly suggest going to try to pick it up, because it is just, it's nice. You don't have all the settings and everything else that you have like an LMP1 car. It's very, very easy to drive, in my opinion. So as far as prototypes go, so just something to think out there as we continue to watch the field circulate here. Is on your screen right now, trying to 26 machine. That's Kundinger. Cardi Kundinger, of course, just finishing up his pit stop just a few minutes ago. And coming up on some freeze, we got Santana now. We're going to go and follow along with him. Kevin Santana, of course, second in the GT Pro AM class, and he's fighting with Musser right now to try to keep that second position. Musser on a charge. Riding on board now with Jordan Musser, and Jordan Musser doing whatever he can here to get around Kevin Santana. And I'll tell you from experience, getting around Kevin Santana, not the easiest thing in the world to do. Kevin is a very, very fair racer, but he's a very tough racer at the same time. So that's part of the reason why he's made a lot of friends over the years too. I'll tell you that. He's a good guy, but passing is going to be very tough here. You're going to have to try to get the run. You're going to have to try to get him in a high-speed section. And I don't think he's going to try here at the bus stop, but he might be trying to set him up, maybe getting into turn one. As Jordan's going to brake a little bit early, let Kevin get away from him just a touch. He's going to go ahead and try to draft him here as they get back on the accelerator. Oh, wow. Kevin Santana, great bus stop there. He pulled well away. I think Jordan may have gotten a little bit loose there, Si.
Absolutely. It's definitely one of those scary corners of the bus stop here. It's just about how much you can commit. Some of these GT cars, they can get a little bit unhappy with you when you try to drive it like a prototype in there. I speak from experience, unfortunately. But it's just about being gentle and just managing how that weight moves across the car, especially for that back and forth. It's quite different now, especially with the extra curbing compared to the older version of the track, but you can say it just adds more challenges.
It certainly does. I believe that is Paul Darling on your screen. And he just came down pit road. And so starting to see now the back half of the prototypes. And from here, Paul should be able to go the rest of the way here. Don't you think, Si?
It'll be very, very tight. These cars, like I said earlier, have a restricted fuel tank down to 60 liters compared to the 75 that they usually get. And that brings down the stint times to just about 30 minutes. Maybe a little bit less depending on how heavy you are with your right foot. But Paul has been able to go consistently a lap or two longer than all of his other drivers or competitors in the P2s right now. And considering he's just left the pits and we only have about 25 minutes left, I'd say he's pretty good to go to the end. But I'd like to see that final lap and see if he actually makes it to the end or not without sputtering.
Well, there's that fuel mileage is something that's no stranger to races at Daytona either. These and you know that these guys have spent a lot of time trying to figure out how many laps per liter or gallon or however they got their sim set up and what units they're using to try to maximize that. Is on the screen right now. Still that battle between Matt Owens and Kevin O'Keefe. Matt Owens actually kind of fallen back just a touch to Kevin. And that gone broke racing machine there. That Ferrari, whoo, got a little tight right there for just a second. Start to head toward the kink. So now, with that stop, the stops in the prototypes, we mentioned that you can gain or lose a lot of time. And one guy that has now gained a ton of time, as we'll watch this pass here get complete, then we'll finish that thought as there goes Matt Owens around O'Keefe. So chalk another spot up there. But going to, so O'Keefe going up over, Matt Owens. But up front in the prototypes right now, we're really going to be watching here in the closing stages of this race. Paul Darling, that lead was, 9.5. Then we saw it and it was 6.5. Now it's down to 3.5 seconds. Over top of David Williams. David Williams is hard charging on his teammate right now. Both members of that TNT racing team And that David Williams is on a mission here right now, Cy.
It's going to be interesting what he does when he gets to the back of his teammate. We don't usually see team orders too much in Autobahn. It's most of a sort of race as hard as you can and take no prisoners sort of league. But if David does manage to get ahead of Paul, will he help Paul save fuel?
Oh, and Paul right there almost had a moment with Chris Sherburne. That's going to cost him a ton of time.
And the gap is down to under a second.
I'm going to pull up the Gsrc replay machine here. Riding, I believe that is on board with Paul Darling here. Going into turn 1, you'll see Chris Sherburne there on the left in the Ferrari. And I think Paul made a rare mistake and tried to cut in while he was still kind of there, and that's going to cost him just a ton of time. And now David Williams is within firing distance here. It's going to take one good run from David Williams, and he might have a chance here of getting around his teammate. So great teammate battle getting ready to shape up here at Daytona. And that's what we got to look forward to here in the last 23 minutes of this race. Starting to see a few more pit stops out there as well. Out of, it looks like the GT Pros, GT AM cars, everybody's starting to make their way down pit road for their last stop. This will for sure be the GT class's last stop here today, Cy.
Absolutely. And you have Ross Booth and Dennis Cervredic only separated by 9 seconds. Remember I said that you gain between 2 to 5 seconds depending on how much fuel you burn a lap here. And well, I think Cervredic may not be quite close enough to Ross Booth to actually take advantage of that. If Dennis decides to turn up the wick after this last stop, we might see that gap drop, especially if Dennis has been conserving his tires.
So we'll be keeping an eye on Symmetrics there at the end of this race. Looking around the field here as well. We go back up to Williams here. David Williams and Paul Darling is now that gap is even closer, just a couple of tenths of a second, and they still got lap traffic that they are contending with here right now. Actually got an incident here. Cody Franklin and is it Jeremy Rhodes around.
That is not a good place to be turned
around. And the
around.
GT AM leader around in turn 1. They have lost a ton of time. They've been stuck like this for a little bit now. I don't know if we're going to be able to go back to be able to see a replay of this, but if I'm Jeremy Rhodes, I am not a happy camper right now. Little bit of contact, but that little bit's all it took.
And that is one of the worst places to be turned around on track.
I distinctly remember it was only a few years ago. One of the few races, the Delta Wing was doing really well. Blind corner incident coming around into turn 1 ended their night at the Daytona 24, and that hard to believe that was just a few years ago, and it feels like yesterday with the way that 2020 has gone for everybody. But let's go ahead back up front. We were getting ready to head up there. Let's go ahead and see how that battle is going there with Paul Darling and David Williams. David Williams now has definitely caught his teammate, and I think you're going to see a lot of patience here out of David Williams. For this spot here, Cy, is he knows he has time, he knows he's got the pace and the speed, but do you think maybe he might try to start maybe saving a little bit of fuel now that he's behind his teammate?
What I'm thinking is that if they are teammates, does David know that Paul has that one less pit stop to do? David knows that he's going to have to do an extra splash and dash here at the end, maybe look for another lap or so of fuel, but if he doesn't know that Paul Darling has that one stop less, he might fight harder than he otherwise would.
So, intrigue abound here in the final stages of the race. That's just how I like my races. Little bit of fuel strategy, little bit of teammate coordination here, or teammates fighting, depending on how you want to look at it. And that's Daytona. And somehow we've been able to survive Daytona with 60-plus cars. And there's been some attrition, but the racing is still just as intense here with these guys. Is still riding on board Paul Darling. Paul Darling trying to break that draft a little bit, get around, going 3 wide, getting around. I believe that was, trying to go back here, that was Shane Hunter and Paul Slavonic. getting around those guys. Hearing Paul Darling actually getting onto the clutch. If you got your audio turned up, you'll be able to hear him trying to do his best to save gas wherever possible, getting around the GT AM car there of David Perry. Most everybody's going to clear him, including Paul Stefanik back there.
So that tells us he's not comfortably home on fuel. So it'll be interesting to see if he'll actually make it that extra lap that he needs, or will he have to pit on the last lap and take that splash and dash like everybody else is planning to? This will be interesting based on what David Williams does as well.
And you do have the interesting, you do have the fact too that you also have a prototype up here in the form of John Ulmer that you're not going to get around as fast as some of the GT cars. So you might have an opportunity there to even kind of draft with another same class car, even though you're getting ready to lap them, and save a little bit more there for longer than what you would by trying to slip in behind some of these GT classes. At least that's what I think. Oh, did he get the wall a little bit right there? That was close.
Definitely a moment with some of these GT cars. You want that outside line coming into the bus stop so you can kind of hold as much speed as you can and also save fuel by carrying more speed in. But those GTs like that line as well, and coming up off the banking, they want to get to the right, and if you're not quite there, they might give you the squeeze.
Well, we saw the incident a few minutes ago with Jeremy Rhodes. We've been kind of waiting to see how it shook out and who would end up where. And Kevin Santana is now your new leader in the GTAM class, followed by Jordan Muster and Brian Wash. And I'll tell you, Kevin Santana has himself a pretty decent-sized lead over top of Jordan Muster right now. And if he could just keep it clean, I think he'll be all right. As we're seeing Jeremy Rhodes now coming off of pit road. Jeremy Rhodes was on a recovery drive and somehow ended up in the lead, and then it all just kind of went downhill. He'll see what few spots he's able to get at the end of this thing, but you can tell on his pit exit he's driving a little bit angry, so he might be a man on a mission when he gets out of the gets on the pit exit. But your leaders now into prototypes, going back to them: Paul Darling, David Williams. Still just car lengths between them here at Daytona as they get back up onto the banking. There's definitely some fuel saving going on here. Let's, if we can, Joe, if we could go ahead and compare lap times between these two. I'm actually more interested to see if the laps have fallen off for these. Yeah, okay. So these guys very much are capable of running 34-second laps. Right now, they're running 36-second laps. You see that they are staying behind John Ulmer. They have not made an attempt to really get past John Ulmer here at this point to lap him. So they are saving all the fuel they can.
Interesting. Joshua Wolf has just pitted for his splash and dash, about 7 seconds long. So, and the time between the cones at Daytona to drive through pit lane, it's about 20 seconds. So it's going to be about 27 seconds to do that splash and dash. Now the question is, who's within 27 seconds? Joshua Wolf is within 30 seconds of David and Paul. If Josh pushes now and David and Paul don't make that extra lap that they need, they will be within striking distance of Wolf.
And that's going to be the interesting part here. We were talking about Wolf. He was my pick. I'll be honest. I consider him also a little bit of a dark horse, and he's stayed in the hunt. So he might just, right now he figures doing the opposite thing of what David Williams and Paul Darling is doing. Might just be the thing to pay off. And I tell you what, I think I did see when he came back out on this track, he was cutting through the lap traffic like a madman. So he knows full well what he is trying to accomplish here. Go over to Ross Booth. We haven't talked about Ross in a while. Ross, of course, leading the GT Pro category, and just a super clean day out of Ross Booth. We haven't talked about him a lot because there hasn't been a reason to talk about him a lot, because he's been clean this entire way almost. And I think he's can we get a gap on him going back to Kevin Binkley, who's running in second? So 36-second gap. All he's got to do is just bring it home at this point and keep the car clean. I think that's going to be something he's going to be very easily able to do. Watching the leaders here once again, Paul Darling, David Williams kind of got away from the draft just a little bit. They were trying to use that lap vehicle. And that was, let's see who that was. That was Thibault that they were just getting around. And now they got a mess here. Oh, that was almost a moment. Dale Green up there in the Mercedes. Now they're three wide for the lead with the two outside cars. Your prototype's going for it. Teammates going for it. Paul Darling's going to be able to retain the lead. Ends up having to hold up Thibault here. Almost came back at him. Now they're finally like, okay, hammer down. We're getting around Ulmer. And Ulmer is now behind these guys. No more fuel saving. I think they just went hammer down. Take a look at the Gsrc replay machine. This got hairy in a hurry, Si.
Well, there's very little love between teammates at the moment. There was no hold barred there, for certain.
That is definitely for certain. Watch it once again here as they come back into turn one, and then coming outside, going through that left and the right-hander, and then coming up to the horseshoe, it just got active in a hurry. Ulmer kind of swings out to the wide side. The lap GTAM car to the inside. Those guys going, taking it 3 wide, trying to get through there. And they were like, just hammer down. We got to get through the lap traffic. And I don't think Paul's clutching it now as much as what he was a few minutes ago. So, yeah, let's go right on board here with Paul, looking out his front end. Actually, can we look out his rear wing real quick and just see how close his teammate is? I think we got that camera out there, too.
Oh, I think I may have just seen Williams lift off there a little bit coming to the braking zone. So.
I think might have caught Ulmer off guard a little bit. Another lap vehicle there. Another lap vehicle there, kind of getting closing it up a little bit. That was our friend Dawson Brock, and I think we're getting close to having a few guests here in the booth, and also Soup is being able to get back online as well here. So. And just as I say that, I think I cursed Soup. That would be the first time I cursed somebody here for today, unfortunately. But Lionel Pratt now is the one that's unfortunately in front of the leader here, holding them up just a little bit. But man, I tell you what, this is going to be tight here. Lap traffic very well could be the deciding factor in this race, Si.
The management key portion of this race has been completely, or what's the word? As an essential. We've seen a lot of top-rated guys get. Have been retired early. Giuliano has been retired due to traffic. We've had Jason DeVries retired due to traffic. We've seen John Ulmer. We've seen some of these other drivers such as Robert Tinsey. And even, I would say, Billy Smith had issues in traffic, albeit in their own class. But like I said, and like you said earlier, I think it's more about attrition and managing the traffic than actual outright pace.
Yeah. And mixing in just a little bit of luck to go along with it, too. We've definitely seen some bad luck here tonight related to traffic. And I think these guys, as we're watching Mark Herzog coming back out at pit road right there, we got Cunningham and Leif Peterson now on your screen, 10th of a second between them, with Leif trying to find a way around Carter. Not quite able to get there through the bus stop, coming back out on the banking. It's still got eyes at the front, though. And Paul Darling and David Williams, once they cleared it, I think they went back into fuel saving mode because they have not pulled away from John Ulmer at all. All right, so I mentioned we got a guest here with us here a little bit. Adam Lindgren coming in to join us here for a little bit. And Adam, thanks for coming in here on short notice. Great action here at Daytona.
Yeah, fantastic action as usual. We're seeing some great action up at the front of that prototype field that you guys have been watching between Paul Darling and David A. Williams. Some great action up there with Ross Booth also only 8 seconds ahead in the second class as well. So it's just very intense battling here in Autobahn as we're accustomed to seeing.
Yeah, and I think a large part of the I believe that might have been pit stop related there. Now that's down to 8 seconds. We might have seen that 30 seconds there. But either way, Ross Booth here, he's had a clean day, Adam. It's been great to see him have a clean day. The GTAM has been exciting as well. We saw the Jeremy Rhodes accident a little while ago, which gave Kevin Santana the lead. We're getting close to about 10 minutes here to go. So we can go and give Kevin Santana a little bit of love here before we get a little closer to the end of this race. It's still got eyes on the front of the field just in case something happens up there. But excuse me, I get a little choked up, but as in fact we actually go up there here for a moment, John Ulmer giving a little bit of a light flash to David Williams and Paul Darling. These guys are going to come out here with a lot of GT traffic in front of them, so we might actually want to stay with the leaders here for a little bit as that Paul Darling, David Williams continue to fuel save, and now going to have to fight through traffic once again. Last time we saw this, Sia, it got super exciting.
Oh, absolutely, but I think neither of them are solid on their two-stop strategy right now. And I'm keeping an eye on Joshua Wolf right now. He is 2 seconds or so a lap faster at the moment, between 1 and 2 seconds depending on traffic. And he's within 26 seconds now. So if Paul and David don't make their fuel number, they will get passed by Joshua on the last lap, I believe.
Yeah, and that fuel number is becoming really important because David A. Williams sat behind Paul Darling as they came down the front stretch. Both of them were a good 15 miles per hour slower than John Ulmer. That's why John came with such a great speed. I think both of them are at least half throttling and lifting and coasting going into the corners here around Daytona. Both of them are really tight on fuel, I think.
And I would have to think that the smart play might have been to let Ulmer back by them going through turn 1 last time by and try to draft off him a little bit, let him be the one to try to cut through some of this lap traffic. But that did not happen. And now they're going to be under the gun from the Wolfman himself, Joshua Wolf, as we look at the lap comparison here to see just how much faster he's been than David Williams. He's got 3 prototype cars right there, right through the bus stop. You know he is hot. He is forcing the issue. Oh! Gets a little loose on the exit. Woo! John, gosh, let's dial it back just a notch. Dial it back just a notch, buddy. Let's right on board here with Joshua Wolf. Tell you what, Adam, talk us through this.
Yeah, Josh Wolf just coming up on some lap traffic, a very intense lap moment. He's going to try and take it to the inside through the bus stop, which is always a sketchy proposition. I'm not sure whether he saw that GTE car, but he's well alongside, so he gets in here, and it just gets a little bit loose through the center of the bus stop, doesn't realize it until the exit. Almost full opposite lock to get that thing going once again, but managed to keep it off the wall, still gaining time on the leaders.
I mentioned that Joshua Wolf is one of those guys that's great at feeling and judging where the air is going to be. That time it was great in feeling where your front wheels are and being able to yank that wheel back in place at the right times. He is on a tear, and that goes to show that he's got a lot of work to catch these two with Paul Darling now up there with David Williams. Paul Darling, of course, remember earlier on, if you're just joining us, took the lead earlier on after David Williams had hit the end of the pit road on the first round of pit stops coming out of these guys. And of course, they both got up front after Giuliano Romolalo ended up having issues right at the start of the race with the lap vehicle, same with Jason DeVries. So lap attrition playing a role in the prototype class, but has led to this exciting race here between teammates and being hunted down by the likes of Joshua Wolf.
So, Cy, one of the things that I'm thinking about if I'm David A. Williams is when am I going to make my move? Obviously, assuming I'm going to be able to make it to the end on fuel. Do you make that before the bus stop or after the bus stop? What's the right time to make that pounce on Paul Darling and try and get the pass on the teammate?
So the Dallara definitely has, despite it being closed cockpit, punches a bit of a bigger hole in the air compared to the HPD. You're able to get more of a drop from further back. So I think out of the bus stop would be the best, but the Dallara also has a lot of aero wash as well, and the bus stop being such a fast corner, you might not be able to close close enough to get that run to the finish line. So maybe out of turn 6 coming onto the banking would be the best place to sort of get that run and sort of send it into the bus stop. But it's always scary going too wide through there.
That gap stays the same between these two. They have also not dropped Ulmer. Ulmer is still kind of hanging back there as these guys continue to fuel save. Joshua Wolf, with that little bit of a bobble, did not gain a whole lot of time that last time by. But at this point, he doesn't have to, as the is definitely on there. Oh, he had another bobble we're hearing. Is the car okay? Here's out of turn 6 a moment ago. Hearing Dawson Brock also having an issue. We'll go take a look at that here in a few minutes. Josh here getting ready to come through turn 6 right there, coming back up onto the banking. Yeah, okay,
Yes.
that banking just a little bit, but that's all it takes because you're delayed on getting back onto the throttle, Adam, on one of the fastest portions of the racetrack.
Absolutely, and just a little bit of a moment there. This is Dawson Brock recovering from his incident that he had back there battling for the 9th position with Chris Sherburne. This is, I believe, him and Chris, so we're going to see him go deep into turn 1 and, well, rather turn 3 and get very, very loose. Spinning around, and Chris Sherburne gets hit,
Sherburne.
yeah.
Which Sherburne himself is a fair number of incidents here today. He's been in and around, none of which really his fault. It's just been bad luck for him. Back up to the front now with the prototypes, Darling and David Williams. We've also still have our eye on the other classes. Ross Booth still in the lead of the GTE Pro, and Kevin Santana still in the lead of the GTAM. You can see the gaps there on the scoring tower on the left as we head to the closing stages of the race. This is the top category that is in contention here. Everybody else has kind of settled out a little bit. They've just got to finish the race. This race is not decided, and not decided by a long shot. Cy, what is your gut telling you right now? Have these two saved enough fuel to maybe be able to go the rest of the way, or are they going to have to come back in?
Ooh, I think David being in the draft has a bit of an advantage, but Paul's been able to go a lap longer than David, so David's had to do a lot of extra fuel saving. I don't think David's going to have it to go to the end of the race here. He's going to have to pit, so he's going to have to either get the hammer down and get the gap to Joshua so he can pit and come out ahead, or he can just stay where he is and just save as much as he can behind Paul. It's going to be interesting to see if Paul makes it, though, given the way he's been saving, even though he's had David right behind him, and whether they're communicating on that since they're teammates.
Yeah, and that was John Ulmer slipping through. John recovering one of his laps, just moving up onto possibly the lead lap.
Yeah, it is back on the lead lap, and that's kind of what I was thinking they should have done a little while ago, and draft off those guys now. And at least Paul Darling and Dave Williams can use the Ulmer's draft, try to save just a little bit more. We'll continue to watch Josh Wolf just continue to try to push the issue. And he's really trying to dig and get up here to these guys.
And Adam, Leif Peterson just came into the pits for a splash and dash, just came in, got some fuel, and is back out. So down in from 4th position.
Yeah, so Leif Peterson, another one of the prototypes that has kind of come in. Of course, we saw Joshua Wolf with the trying to basically force a strategy, do exactly the opposite of what Darlings and Williams is doing to try to essentially do something different. But the gap continues to fall between him and Leif Peterson. Maybe could gain a few positions here as well, as we still got to watch Carter Cunninger and see what he ends up doing as well. They had a little bit of a fight going on earlier with Cunninger and Leif Peterson that we saw here on the broadcast. So these guys, as I mentioned, pushing the issue. This is going to be tight. Watch John Ulmer now come down. This is going to be for his splash to go. Of course, he gives up that lap, and it's now fallen back to being a lap down.
Yeah, things getting very interesting here as far as the fuel strategy is concerned for a lot of these P2 machines. That Leif Peterson did slip out. Oh, and it looks like Carter Cundinger's come into the pits as well. But Leif Peterson did slip out into a battle with Bradley Haley and Robert Canchin for the 5th position. They're all within a second of one another. So look for 5th place to be in high contention towards the end of this race as well, as we're closing into the last minute and a half as we look at Carter Cundinger on pit road. 5.7 seconds for fuel.
All right, so answers are getting ready to be had. I would imagine, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, next time by we should get the white flag for Paul Darling and David Williams here. And will they decide they're going to go for it, or will they come down for that quick splash and go with the possibility of having to hold off Joshua Wolf right at the very end? That's going to be the big question. We've got just a few seconds before we're going to get the answer here, as they are rounding NASCAR 3, coming to NASCAR 4, onto the front straightaway, heading toward the white flag. And also, they're going to go for it. They are going to go ahead and see a great teammate battle here as well if they decide they can actually make it to the rest of the way. So we're actually watching a few other battles that we'll get to here as soon as these guys start coming across the line. But we're going to stay with them here for the final lap. That's the lap car vehicle. That was Dawson Brock once again going through the first horseshoe. Williams right there. I don't think Williams is going to pounce until probably at least the back end of the bus stop. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I'm thinking I personally would actually bounce before the bus stop and then try and hold him off by pushing him wide through 3 and 4. But that's because I like to surprise my competitors a little bit, because I think that Paul Darling's going to be wise to David Williams trying to make the move out of the bus stop. But let's see what David does as we're getting ready to go onto the banking for the final time for these P2 cars. Oh, look at this! Paul Darling a little bit wide. David A. Williams can't get down the traction. It's going to be close. These two guys now in drafting. David Williams with a decent run, but they've got Eric Garnet and Dale Green up ahead, and they're battling for position 10th in their class. They're holding up all the road. It's going to be 3 wide, splitting them.
That gets exciting right there. Heading toward the bus stop, under power braking now. Paul Darling's going to cut it in, and great exit from Paul Darling. Looks like David Williams is going to clip that cone a little bit. Hopefully he didn't get a slowdown out of it, but he's going to be too far back here unless something happens. In fact, he is dropping off. Is he out of fuel? No, he still has fuel, but then racing.
Oh, Paul Darling's out! Darling's out!
Darling's out. Are they both going to make it? Are they
They're both out?
Oh, I think David Williams let his teammate get it right there. Wow. We knew that was going to be close. All right, we go back to Ross Booth. He's coming around. He should be able to take the GT Pro lead here, or the win here, very easily coming down the front straightaway. Congratulations to Ross Booth. That is your GT Pro winner. And where is your GTAM? I'm looking for him. There is. You got Kevin Santana now on your screen. Great run today from Kevin Santana. He's got a little bit of a ways to go before he comes all the way around. And tell you what, we were able to focus a little bit on the GTAM class here today, and they put on some great racing. I do not. Musser is a ways back right now. Yeah, so leaders were between them. So Musser's race is done. We're just waiting for the leader to come across the line. And Adam, I got to thank you here while the broadcast is still coming on to step in real quick. Cy, you did a fantastic job as well. Of course, if you're just joining us, a few technical issues tonight that we've overcome, able to bring you the end of the race here. Watching Kevin Santana round NASCAR 3, coming around to NASCAR 4, coming to the front straightaway here in just a moment. A little bit of draft, no fuel issues here, as Kevin Santana is going to win your GTAM class, the season opener at Daytona. Congratulations to your class winners. We'll be back maybe with a few interviews coming up here in just a few minutes. Welcome back. What an exciting race here for Autobahn. We just got done with 90 minutes at Daytona. And I tell you what, there was a lot to talk about here for tonight. Lots of action on track, lots of lapped action. And it ultimately came down to a field strategy race at the end between teammates, but it was a great field strategy race. Don't get me wrong there. Hey, let's go ahead and congratulate Paul Darling on winning the Autobahn race here at Daytona, opening round of the season, followed very closely behind by David Williams. We'll get a chance to talk to them, and we'll see who was running out of fuel where and what happened with that one. We'll talk about that. Joshua Wolf coming up, ultimately just short. He tried to do the opposite strategy of Darling and Williams, did not get quite there. And so we'll talk about that here in a few minutes as well. But great race there. Carter Cunninger coming in 4th, Leif Peterson 5th, Bradley Haley in 6th, Robert Conchian in 7th, John Omer 1 lap down in 8th position, and Mark Wilson and David Warner round out your top 10 and your front part of the podium field. Let's go ahead and kick it over to Adam.
Absolutely, Ross Booth taking home the GT Pro the GT Pro win here, with Kevin Benkley coming home in a not too distant second, only 8 seconds behind. Dennis Sabertek coming home in 3rd position. Behind him is Marc-Antoine Thibault in 4th. There was a pretty decent fight for 5th place between Jimbo Pfeiffer and Paul Slavonic, coming home in 6th position, with Vance Bow coming home in 7th, and Olivier Turcotte coming home in 8th position, with Christopher Pietz coming home in 9th, Young Park in 10th, Sheldon Rosenbaum 11th, Jerry Mueller 12th, and Lionel Duprat rounding out your finishing drivers as far as the GT Pro is concerned. And then we have the GT AMs, which is Kevin Santana coming home with the win, Jordan Muser coming home in 2nd place. Kevin Santana actually had to do an extra lap than all the rest of these guys. And then we have Joey Atterbury coming home in the 3rd spot, with Ryan Wash in 4th, and a tight battle between Luke Schmidt, Kevin O'Keefe, and Mark Herzog for 5th, 6th, and 7th positions in the GT-AM class. Matt Owens coming home in 8th, Chris Sherburne comes home in 9th, and then Dale Green in 10th position. Eric Gaudreau-Drapeau coming home in the 11th spot, with Dawson Brock in 12th. Ryan Robertson 13th, Sean Reese 14th, Jared Eden 15th, and Joey Trungale 16th. Jeremy Rhodes, one of your few finishers. We have drivers who had a lot more trouble, starting with Dominic Dernberg, and you'll be able to read the rest of the results on your screen. And back to you, Adam.
And of course, one of those ones you see is Romelu De Vries, all a bunch of guys that had a lot of problems toward the beginning of this race. But we got your race winner, Paul Darling. I've turned a lot of laps with Paul Darling over the years. Paul, congratulations on winning the Autobahn race here tonight. And it was an exciting one. I got to know, how close were you on fuel?
Very first stint actually ended up sputtering because of the pace lap, ended up sputtering into the stall. But I mean, I was doing everything I could to save as much fuel as possible, like clutch in, lifting way before any of the markers even started on some of the corners. But just glad it was able to work out.
Well, that's I would say worked out definitely for sure there, and you got to think though back to the beginning part of this race and some of the lap traffic, especially when lap traffic guys first started getting into it. How close was it? Because it looked really exciting here on the broadcast.
Yeah, I'm glad it was exciting. It was insane from the driver's seat here. There was a lot of some crazy 3 wides, and then I do want to apologize to Jason. I was just trying to find our contact there. That was a really close deal, but it was just a lot of chaos, as you'd find in any opening Autobahn race.
And that's I would say chaos. That's a good fitting description right there for that. And for the prototypes though, I mean, first Autobahn race with the prototype with the LMP2 as a prototype. What'd you think?
Sorry, say that again.
What did you think of the prototype with the LMP2 as the prototype car? I mean, what did you think of it as first race?
I have a totally love-hate relationship with this thing. It is such a pain in the butt to set up, and David has been instrumental in trying to get our setup as good as possible. Absolute pain in the butt to set up, but when it's, I don't know, when you get in the zone with it and you're just on the limited grip with the tires, the tire model feels really good. It's an absolute blast to drive.
Well, hey Paul, congratulations again. Anybody you'd like to thank here real quick?
Again, double shout out for David Williams for all the hard work on the setup that he's put in since I've been able to practice as much for the setup side on this one. And GTR Simulators are team sponsor for TNT. Definitely got to give them a shout out.
All right. Well, thanks very much for joining us here, Paul. And we'll get to David Williams in a few minutes. But first, we want to go ahead and get to Ross Booth, the GT Pro winner here for tonight. Ross, hey, man, congratulations coming home with the class win. And you had a relatively clean race compared to a lot of the other classes here for today. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about it.
Wow. I can't believe it, to be honest with you. First off, couldn't believe I got pole, and then couldn't believe how this whole race ended up for me. I was sweating buckets. Kevin was catching me right before the last pit stop there, and I had a lot of trouble through traffic. Just seemed like every lap I was getting held up through the infield or through the bus stop. But he might have had trouble after the pit stop, but I had like 8-second lead and sort of just cruised home to the win.
Well, you mentioned the word cruise, though. I mean, I can't imagine that it was all cruising, though. I mean, tell us about any kind of exciting moments that you had.
There was quite a few moments where the GT3 car would miss the bus stop, and the bus stop is a really high commitment corner. So we had a few butt puckering moments through there, trying to get the car slowed up and not run over them, but overall, I had, like you said, kept it out of trouble. I think I only had 2 incidence points. Got one right on the first lap. I couldn't believe it. I'm super pleased.
Well, and that's it's great you're able to keep it up, keep it off the wall. That's always great there. But one place that we're coming to here in a couple of weeks that you may have a little bit harder problem. It's a completely different racetrack. Is Sebring? Are you gonna be able to do a repeat performance there?
I sure hope so. Spent a lot of time figuring out the setup for Daytona, and you sort of throw away the Daytona setup for Sebring. So sort of back to the drawing board, and we'll see what we can do next in a couple weeks.
Well, hey, appreciate you joining us here, Ross. Anybody like to thank here?
Just huge shout out to everyone that gets everything together in the league. Shout out to my teammate Jason. He really helped me with dialing the car for this week's race, and yeah, I'm just stoked. Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, Ross, congratulations again, and maybe we'll talk to you here in 2 weeks. We've got to be able to grab Kevin Santana here. He's got the GTAM class win, and really was able to kind of get in there. And so we'll kind of over to Adam Lindgren here with Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin, definitely an interesting race. A huge field to start off the season for sure. But talk to me about your race and especially about gaining those 3 spots to the win tonight. How hard was it to get back up there tonight?
As I always do on 90-minute races, I took tires. It always seems to work for me.
Yeah, taking tires does seem to be a huge benefit as well. But how tough was the traffic out there tonight? Was especially with the addition of the P2. How different is it from seasons past?
It didn't seem like it was all that much different. I mean, the P2 between the HPD from previous.
Absolutely. So not that much different as far as you were concerned. But that being said, the field's a pretty big field for tonight. Did that affect how you navigated traffic at all? And did it cause you any trouble tonight?
I didn't have any trouble with anything.
Absolutely. And considering you finished well ahead of Jordan, what do you think made the difference tonight, aside from the tires? Were you doing any fuel saving towards the end of the race, or were you good on fuel, especially to go that extra lap?
I was good on fuel.
Absolutely, Kevin. Well, it's great to see you up there at the top of the podium once again in the Autobahn series. And is there anyone you want to give a thanks for this win of the opening round tonight?
As usual, thanks for everybody that puts it on, and John for sponsoring us with this.
All right. Well, thanks for talking to us, Kevin. And it's great to see you once again in the series, and we look forward to seeing you race next week.
As long as my new job at the talk radio station keeps giving me Mondays off, I'll be here.
All right. Thanks for talking to us, Kevin. That was Kevin Santana. And back to you, Adam.
Yeah, so let's go pull in David Williams here, and Sayandra is going to catch up with second place overall and second place in prototypes.
Well, David, I'm going to start you off with the same question that we asked the winner. How tight were you on fuel at the end of the race there?
I had 0.1 liters left.
So you were sputtering at the end there.
No, I wasn't sputtering. I would have crossed the line just right, but going through the bus stop faster this time through, I missed the turn completely. We had talked about going side by side at the start-finish line to, for a nice little picture, and I just blew it like a bonehead.
That was something we were discussing in the booth, whether you lifted a little bit to give your teammate an easier time at the end. Were you guys in communication during the race? How much were you talking about your fuel numbers and whether who was leading and who had to drop back a little bit?
I would say throughout the entire race, we got a spotter and strategist on board now that really helped us out. Trevor was amazing. I would say the entire last stint for me, we were constant communication on how I could hit those fuel numbers. And thanks to Trevor's accurate calculations and giving us the target numbers we need to hit, and Paul backing down a little bit so I could draft, we made it. It was pretty awesome.
Well, teammates working together is always good to see. Last question. What were you worried about Wolf at all, the way he was closing in at the end of the race there? Were you worried at all about not being able to hit your fuel numbers?
No, not really. Once again, Trevor was in constant communication, so he was keeping us calm, letting us know, hey, you got 30 seconds back, you're 25 seconds back, you're 20 seconds back, just giving us time marks and telling us you need to hit this lap times, you need to hit this lap time, etc. So really, with him on the microphone and in our ears, man, it was a very relaxing race, probably the most relaxed and the most excited I've ever been for second place.
All right, one last little quip. What was going through your mind when you sort of touched the end of the pit wall there coming out on your first stop?
Panic, probably. This entire race, I dealt with my Oculus flickering because I guess there haven't been that many cars on track the entire time, so I thought I had my settings right. And this entire race, I was dealing with flickering, fluttering, 45 FPS. Going into turn one, looked like I was playing pole position. It was quite interesting. It was a rough race. I've got a headache from the flickering.
Well, I'm glad you made it to the end, David. Is there anybody you'd like to thank before we send you out here?
Yeah, thank you to you guys for broadcasting, as always. Thanks to Omer and his team for putting Autobahn together. Thanks for DMG United and TNT Racing for allowing us to come together and put this team together. And once again, thanks to Paul, Trevor, and Joey all for the help throughout the week, and looking forward to an exciting season.
Thank you, David. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you guys.
And thanks again to everybody that was able to come in here tonight for interviews. And it was, tell you what, it's definitely, not even going to lie, not going to cover up one of the more interesting GSRC broadcasts we've had in a while, but we got through it. And it's a lot thanks to you out there watching. It's also thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts that are listed on your screen. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And also, thanks to the team today. Man, we got to add some names to this. Of course, you got Sean, who helped start the race as far as director, Bill, and of course, Adam Lindgren coming in here at the last minute, Doug and Beard always running the cameras. I want to give a very special thanks also to Joe Peak, and who had to step in as director, and also Cy Andra. Cy, you did fantastic. Stepping in, you weren't supposed to really, you're supposed to kind of watch, observe. Instead, you ended up right there co-commentating with me almost the entire race. So thank you very much. But hey, that's one thing that's great about GSRC. We'll always pull it together. And if you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at /Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support the channel, go check out our merchandise store at gsrc.store.com. The link is in the description below here on the YouTube video. Don't forget to head on over to our YouTube page as well and hit that big red subscribe button and so you don't miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. Hey, we've been talking about 2 weeks, Sebring, Monday, December 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it'll be an exciting one for sure, especially if we put on another great race like we did here at Daytona tonight. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out, mark them down in your calendar. We hope you've enjoyed joining us here tonight as much as we've enjoyed bringing this racing to you. So we hope to see you back again here real soon. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.